from GC 90.7's Studio A on the campus of Gulf Coast State College. Rap Line with Emily Balazs.
He's the award-winning author of many books, including the super popular John Jordan Mystery Series, also a screenwriter, a filmmaker, and much, much more. Today we're going to talk to author Michael Lister about his latest book. It's called A Certain Retribution, and it takes place here in Bay County, in his hometown. He describes the book as a mystery, a thriller, and a love story, and he's here to tell us more about it. Welcome back to the show, Michael.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Great to have you with us. I enjoyed reading the book, and I'm excited to talk to you about it.
Thank you.
Why don't I let you set the stage for A Certain Retribution?
Well, it's the sequel to Thunder Beach, a novel that came out in 2010, and from that time until now, I always thought I would revisit Merrick McKnight, the protagonist of Thunder Beach. Always felt like there would be it would be a series and there would be a sequel. What I didn't realize is it would take this long to do it, and just because I've been working on the Jimmy Riley series and the John Jordan series and the other things that have been happening. But it was just always been in the back of my mind, okay, what's next for Merrick? What's next? And when I envisioned this story, I guess I got the idea for the story first, and as I began to live with it and think about it, I realized, oh wow, this is Merrick McKnight's next adventure. And so that's how it came about, and it is, I do foresee this series, really going on and maybe a book a year for the next several years that feature not only Merrick, but now his love interest, Reggie Summers.
And tell us about Reggie Summers. This is a great character.
She is she's a small town girl and from Weewa, lived there, grew up there, moved away. She's a single mom, very strong, capable person. She is, however, somewhat haunted by some very, difficult, dark things that happened to her in adolescence. Things that she probably has not really dealt with yet, and so now, she's dealt with them, and yet she continues to, and so it's like almost like an open wound. And so in this book, is really things are coming to a head, and she's really getting to deal with them. Partly because she's moved back, and she moved back to Weewa to take care of her dying mom. But she also, her ulterior motive is to confront the people that, her attackers, abusers from the past, confront them head on, and see what happens. And so she gets a chance to do that in this book.
And her retribution can be accomplished with a badge this time.
She is in law enforcement. She probably chose law enforcement because of what happened to her. She has, I think, always had in the back of her mind, okay, one day I will make things right. And now's her chance to do that. What happens, what is, I think, totally unexpected and a surprise for she and Merrick, is meeting one another and how their lives were going, and then how they are changed because of their intersecting.
And so there's many real life places in A Certain Retribution, and as we mentioned at the top of the show, this takes place in your hometown.
It does. First time in 20 years that I've set an entire novel in Weewa Hitchcock. The part of the fun of Thunder Beach was I used real locations in Panama City, mostly real locations, and both in Panama City Beach and Panama City, and I enjoyed that so much, and I knew I wanted to do that again. With certain my other series, like the John Jordan series, is set in a fictitious town of Pottersville. It's set in the fictitious state prison of PCI, Potter Correctional Institution. But then from there, I get to let John visit real locations. Whereas in these books, everything is real, and so it's it presents new challenges, but it's also a lot of fun to do. And in addition to putting real places, I also put a few real people that happen to work or be in those places that as a way to honor them and just have a little fun with it.
Such as?
Well, one of my best friends and people I enjoy living close to the most in Wee-Waa is Mitchell Johnson, and he owns the Corner Cafe. Mitchell, like Merrick, like me, like Reggie, grew up in town, moved away. He actually went way away to the West Coast, came back recently in the last probably 5 years or so, and he owns a cafe there now. And he's got a very interesting story about that actual location and things that happened in his past, in his childhood, and now he owns the place. And so I got to work that real life story in among the fiction. And that's just one example. There are many, both places and people, that are real, and I get to introduce my fictional characters and let them interact.
Now, tell us a little bit more about Reggie Summers. Now, as I was reading this, I kind of likened Reggie to a co-protagonist, if you will, along with Merrick. It's kind of like they were the dynamic duo, if you will.
You're exactly right. Exactly. I think the series going forward will be the Merrick McKnight and Reggie Summers series. In my novels, Burnt Offerings and Separation Anxiety, there are a female and male protagonist that work together, and I think I see this as the same way. This probably this series will be as more about their relationship than the other series is. Plenty of mystery and suspense and action as well, but I really enjoyed exploring their differences and how they relate, and as I mentioned earlier, how unexpected this reconnection is, and how it catches them both, by surprise, and that's what happens when something unexpected happens in your life. You can either say, okay, I'm going to close the door and go in a different direction, or if you go with it, then it's going to change things. And so Reggie returns to Wee-Waa to take care of her dying mom, to become the new chief of police in this small town, and that was part of the plan. Now there's an additional something that has happened that she chooses whether to incorporate that into the plan or not, and she's going back and forth as she really wants it, and yet she can see how it would get in the way of her mission, and she, because of things that have happened to her, because she is this strong law enforcement officer, single mom, all around badass, she is not particularly open to this relationship, and yet she can't really say no. So she goes back and forth about, whether to get involved.
Yeah, as you're making the hand gestures, that's what I thought when I was reading it was a real tug of war. Each time they get close, and then it's kind of like, I don't know if, you're going to leave anyway, so get away from me, right. Just kind of that tug of war between the two.
Yeah, of the two of them, I think Merrick is much more open to something and wanting to pursue it. He has questions and reservations, as I think most everyone does. But yeah, with her, it really is a back and forth. Is this something I should do, and yet is this something that I can't not do? I can't help but at least go down this road, this path, and then as she does, she's constantly putting on the brakes and backing up, and so I like that about the character. It seems very real to me in how someone who is either said, and I meet people like this all the time that say, I'm single, I'm staying single, I have no interest in a relationship, and then they meet someone and they think, well, goodness, this plan I had for my life, here's an opportunity for it to change, and yet. But it's not. I don't know what to do. So, to me, that's a very real life scenario. It seems to be more real and true of people I'm encountering today than in the past.
And is Reggie Summers the character? Is she inspired by any particular person?
She is. She is a fictitious character, no doubt, and the things that have happened to her are all made up. They're all out of my imagination, but she definitely is inspired by in her strength, in her integrity, in her sense of humor, in so much about her. She's inspired by my wife, Dawn. And like Reggie, Dawn lived in Wewell, moved back. Like Merrick and Reggie, Dawn and I, both left, came back, reacquainted ourselves with one another, sort of literally bumped into each other, and a relationship began, and so similar to them. So she's definitely inspired by Dawn, and as that happened, I think probably Merrick became, in some ways, subtle probably, but in some ways more like me. He's still a fictional character, but the bringing Reggie in and her being inspired by Dawn, I think has changed Merrick in some ways, so that they are both, fictional counterparts to us.
And so what does Dawn think about Reggie and where she should... Does she have any suggestions on where Reggie should move forward?
Well, Dawn reads everything and gives me suggestions. She's a voracious reader, always has been, and really gives me great feedback on what works and what doesn't, what she likes. And I think she's really likes this series. I hesitate to speak for her, but I think she would say John Jordan series is still her favorite, but I think she likes Reggie. She approves of what I did, fictitiously with the character. She likes their relationship. Of course, she likes the small town and the adventure they're on. And she's a live-in consultant to this series. So
that's great, and you can probably ask her any time of the day about anything.
Anytime, day or night.
And so as we're talking more and more about A Certain Retribution, there are, of course, murders that happen that have to be solved, and the people that are getting murdered are law enforcement. And this town in the book is just full of crooked cops and crooked county leaders. And so many might think that, well, they deserve to be killed, and it's okay.
Well, that is the question, isn't it? Is there, when you think of justice, when you think of retribution, is there such thing? Can our system handle justice? I mean, do we ever achieve justice? Can an individual achieve justice? Is it okay at times for someone to take the retribution, justice into their own hands? Does it always have to be the system? Can we ever achieve any kind of justice, either way? So the book explores those things a little bit. The, cops that are being killed, I should say that, the sheriff of Gulf County right now is a great friend of mine. We graduated high school together. He was the primary law enforcement consultant, not only on this book, but most of my books. He's the one that I can ask questions all the time, and he is a great, and he's a man of integrity and is doing a great job. This is not based on, it is a fictitious version of these officers. But anyone in power has a particular opportunity to abuse that power. And we see that all the time. Politics, religion, law enforcement. And so it's just a case of this person who is bent, and he's multifaceted. He's not just a bad guy. There's a lot of facets to him. But he is bent, and he has, as often is the case, surrounded himself by others who enable that, who are a part of that, maybe have always been a part of from going back to childhood or adolescence. They've almost been like this gang, and now they are a gang with badges.
So, what do you want to say as far as, without giving things away, kind of what happens as far as killings and the process to investigate that?
Well, what Reggie actually, when she returns with this sort of ulterior motive of confronting her attackers from when she was in high school, these attackers are, they're the law enforcement now. They're, not every deputy in the department is corrupt, but this gang we mentioned, they are, and she wants to confront them. Well, shortly after she's moved back into town, one by one they're being killed, each one of them with their own guns, the very things that either she came to do or certainly wanted to do, and now she's charged with investigating what's happening. It could be her doing it. It could be someone, who is experienced something similar to what she did at their hands, and someone finally has said enough, and so they're doing something about it. And at the same time that this is happening, the department, the sheriff's department, is under investigation by FDLE. So it is a corrupt department. It is a corrupt sheriff, and there's a lot of things going on. And so she's sort of thrown in the middle of all that, and the whole reason she got the job was because of the corruption in the sheriff's department. So she's doing the investigating, but the irony is she's investigating crimes that she, wouldn't, it's not out of the realm of the possibility that she would have committed the crimes that she's actually investigating.
And as you mentioned, that simultaneous FDLE investigation into the sheriff there in Weewa in the book, to make it look as if he's on the up and up, he invites Merrick McKnight in and kind of gives him carte blanche to supposedly cover the investigation alongside his department.
Yeah, I mean, he says to Merrick, they went to high school together, grew up, and know each other well. And so he says to him, hey, I have nothing to hide. And what he's really saying is, in this particular investigation, I have nothing to hide. So I want you to observe what I do step by step. You can report on it, you can write about it, but you're our witness to see that we're handling this case how it should be. And that's his intention to do. It doesn't mean that there's not a lot of other corruption and things happening in other places, but he knew that this would be a great place because he knew, he didn't commit the crime. So inviting Merrick in was for that reason. And he's this sheriff is he's very manipulative, very slick, and it struck me as something that type of person would do. Oh, I'm an open book. Come in and look. And what they're saying is, look at this. Don't look at anything else. But as a really, instead of him just being on the defensive, is him going on the offensive to say, I am a good sheriff, and I do have a clean department, and I can be trusted, and you should reelect me, and that kind of thing.
So let's talk a little bit more about the town of Weewa, and of course the book, as you mentioned, is set there in Weewa, and we get to visit real life places, get to meet some real life people, and a cameo appearance by author Michael Lister as well in the book. And I think that might be the first time I've read that in your books. Definitely
is the first time. I did it for a number of reasons. One, I thought it was just fun because I was putting other real people in the book, many of whom asked to be, when they heard I was doing it, asked to be in it. Others, it just like when we're at the corner cafe, I was like, why not put Mitchell in it? And since I'm often there getting breakfast or lunch or whatever, that would be a great place for me to just say hey to Mitchell and us interact a little bit, and have Merrick mention something about, he's doing this reporting but what he would like to do one day is maybe write novels. So he just says, hey, I really would like his job. And then the other reason I did it, in addition to sort of the wink and the fun and there being these other real people, I thought, let me remind my readers that even if there's certain ideas and thoughts and things about Merrick that are similar to me, he is not me. And so by putting myself in that scene, it was like, okay, here is Merrick and there is Michael, and they're not the same person.
Right. Another issue I wanted to bring up, or what I took out of it, that you kind of addressed the plague that our area has, according to the Bay County Sheriff's Office. At least in Bay County, 1 in 4 women at one time or another will be involved in domestic violence in some way, shape, or form. And there is a little bit of domestic violence in Reggie's family. Her sister is in a bad situation.
Well, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, which is when someone has power or authority, that is the opportunity for abuse. And in the case of domestic violence, and I know it goes both ways, but if one person in the relationship is, physically stronger, or maybe it's not even that so much as they have the disposition that they want to exercise some kind of control and threat and, use violence for control or fear, it is a problem, but not just in Bay County and not just in Gulf County, but everywhere. We're probably the story of human history more than anything else is the abuse of power, the abuse of, anybody. And that, to me, what reveals character more than anything else is when you're put in that type of position. When you have the power in the relationship, in the situation, and how do you handle it? Are you gracious, and, do you take care of those who are weaker, who are, more at risk and need more, or do you take advantage of it? And we see all the time where politicians do it, where ministers do it, where law enforcement officers do it, but we also see it in households, and not just a man or a husband, abusing a wife, but children, and then occasionally a wife or mom abusing children. But that's what it comes down to, is the exercise of power or authority over someone to exert control, to exert fear. I think there's other parts of the world where it's far, far worse. It's to such an extreme that we don't even really think of it as domestic violence or abuse because it's so much a part of the culture. But it's something that we continually need to shed light on and to, bring attention to. And when I wrote it in the book, it was just a natural, that's just how it came out. I wasn't like, I need to address domestic violence or anything like that. It just happened. Yeah, I mean, these people are so real to me. Reggie's sister and her husband and their dynamic, and why her sister can't help out with her dying mom more and all that was just, but it probably did occur to me because of how, unfortunately, how rampant it is and how often you do encounter, and the obvious reaction, people say, well, why didn't somebody leave? Why don't they get out of the situation? And, it's just, there's so much to it psychologically and emotionally, and it's such a difficult situation. Those of us outside of it, should do all we can to, if we're aware of it, to try to intervene, try to help. But the whole thing is extremely difficult.
And again, coming back to that central focus of power, and Reggie Summers has the power in this book. How will she use it? Will she exact retribution? Read it and find out. Now, tell me about, you have a big launch event for this book coming up.
We do. Wednesday, October 22nd at the Bay County Library. I'm going to have the signing, a reading, a launch party for the book. Also be interviewed by a really cool couple that I know you would really like, who had the #1 overnight talk radio show in Chicago on WGN for 25 years.
Oh, cool.
So they'll be there, Steve and Johnny, and it'll be a good time. Everybody's welcome, 6 o'clock, October 22nd, Wednesday evening.
Okay, great. And what is next? First off, for Merrick McKnight and then John Jordan.
Merrick, I've got a story that I'm, sort of letting gestate. You know, it's just there. I return to it when I have time to think about it and all. And so within the next year, 6 months maybe even so, I'll write the book that will feature both Merrick and Reggie, and it'll be what's happening in their relationship as they move forward, and what happens in this small town that they love so much, and the people that they, in so many ways, feel like they are supposed to take care of. As far as John Jordan, right now we are making a John Jordan short film that I'm so excited about, and people can get information about all of this at my website, michaellister.com. But as you know, I have been as influenced by film as literature my whole life, and I've always liked to do both. I think of myself as a novelist first and foremost, and if I had to pick or choose, that's all I would do. But I enjoy film, and I enjoy that medium, and so I am taking the first step in adapting John Jordan, bringing John to the screen. The short film is called Spilled Blood, and anyway, there's more information at my website, michaellister.com. And then the next novel is I can't tell you how excited I am about this, because we're going to see John's past. And so for the very first time, we're seeing John. The novel starts when he is 12 years old, and it is completed when he is 18 or 19. And it's the first in the Atlanta years sort of sub-series within the John Jordan Mysteries. And it involves a real-life case and real-life facts of the Atlanta child murders and how John gets swept up into those. And it really deals with his calling as a minister and as an investigator. And it's called Innocent Blood. There's a couple other surprises I can't really reveal yet, but really cool stuff in that book. And it'll be out early next year.
Okay, perfect. And so you can meet Michael Lister and get him to sign one of his the latest book, A Certain Retribution, October 22nd, Bay County Public Library. More info, videos, and more, michaellister.com. And thanks so much for coming on Rap Line. As always, it was a joy talking to you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And that is a wrap for this edition of Rap Line. Thanks again to Michael Lister for joining us. And remember, if you're thinking of adding a pet to your family, consider the adoption option. And there's one of the pets that you can adopt right there at the Bay County Animal Shelter. I'm Emily Balazs. Thanks for listening and watching, and have a great day.